It was a cold and silent night when Ethan Walker first heard the strange noise outside his cabin. The wind howled through the tall pine trees, but beneath that sound there was something else. A soft thud, followed by what sounded like a whimper. Ethan froze. He lived alone, deep in the woods, far from any neighbors. There shouldn't have been anyone out there at this hour. Grabbing his flashlight, he stepped outside, his breath forming white clouds in the chilly air. "Hello? Is someone there?" He called out, no answer. Just the wind. Then his light caught something, a faint shimmer near the edge of the forest trail. He walked closer, his boots crunching over dry leaves. As he reached the clearing, his eyes widened. There, lying on the ground, was a young woman, or at least something that looked almost human. Her skin had a faint silver glow like moonlight reflected on water. Her hair shimmered between blue and white strands, and her eyes, even half open, looked like glowing crystal marbles. She was breathing weakly, her lips trembling as she whispered something Ethan couldn't understand. Hey, you're okay," he said, kneeling beside her. But she wasn't. She was freezing, shaking, and looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Without thinking, Ethan took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. "Don't worry. You're safe now." She tried to speak again, her voice soft and broken. Hunger. Light. Then her body went limp. Panic rushed through Ethan. He quickly lifted her up. She was lighter than air, almost weightless, and carried her into his cabin. He laid her on the couch near the fire and ran to the kitchen. He didn't know what she was or where she came from, but right now, she looked like someone who needed help. He heated some soup and brought it to her side. "Hey, try to drink this," he whispered, supporting her head. Her eyes fluttered open for a second. When she saw him, she looked scared, like a wild animal cornered. But when he smiled softly and said, "It's okay," she seemed to relax. The girl touched the spoon, sniffed it, then sipped. Her expression changed instantly. Her hands trembled as she took the bowl, drinking the soup like she hadn't tasted food in years. When she finished, she gave him a look, part fear, part gratitude. Ethan smiled awkwardly. "You're welcome, I guess." Then she suddenly spoke a strange phrase, melodic but alien. Her eyes glowed slightly as she whispered it. The sound made Ethan's hair stand on end. It wasn't English. It wasn't any language he had ever heard. He took a step back. What are you?" The girl looked at him blankly, confused, and then slowly raised a shaking finger toward the sky. "Home, gone," she said in a broken voice. "Ship, boom." Ethan's heart pounded. "Ship? Like a spaceship?" He ran to the door and looked outside, pointing his flashlight toward the woods. And then he saw it. Faint smoke rising in the distance and a flicker of silver metal twisted among the trees. "Oh my God," he whispered. "That's your ship, isn't it?" The girl nodded weakly, her eyes filling with tears. "No home, no family?" Something inside Ethan broke at those words. He'd lost his family years ago in a car accident, his wife and little daughter. Maybe that's why his heart softened when he looked at the trembling alien girl before him. "You're not alone anymore," he said quietly. "You can stay here, at least until we figure this out." The girl blinked as if trying to understand his words. Then she nodded slowly. "Stay family?" she whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. "Yeah, family." Outside, the wind howled again. But this time, Ethan didn't feel alone. Somewhere beyond the stars, something had brought this mysterious, hungry alien girl to his doorstep, and he had no idea how much his life was about to change. As she drifted into sleep beside the fire, her faint glow filled the cabin like soft moonlight. Ethan sat nearby, watching her, his mind full of questions and one growing fear. If she really came from a crashed ship, who else might be looking for her? Morning sunlight slowly crept into Ethan's cabin. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. The smell of burning wood, the soft sound of wind brushing against the windows. But when Ethan looked at the couch, the alien girl was gone. His heart jumped. He rushed toward the door and saw the cabin door half open. "Hey, wait!" he shouted, stepping outside. She was there, standing barefoot near the trees, her silver blue hair shining under the early light. She looked weak but calm, touching the bark of a pine tree like she was seeing it for the first time. "Hey, you shouldn't be out here," Ethan said gently. "You're still hurt." She turned to him with those bright crystal eyes. "Warm sun," she whispered softly, as if learning each English word carefully. Then she pointed toward the woods again. Ship call, Ethan frowned. Call? What do you mean? Before he could finish, a faint beeping sound echoed through the forest. Beep, beep. Beep, beep. It came from the direction where he saw the smoke last night. The alien girl's eyes widened. Signal, she said. They come. Who comes? Ethan asked, stepping closer, but she didn't answer. She looked frightened now, terrified even. Ethan could see her body tense up, her skin glowing brighter for a second before dimming again. He grabbed his coat and said, Stay here. I'll check it out. She shook her head quickly. No, dangerous. Her voice cracked with panic. But Ethan gave her a small smile. I'll be careful. He followed the sound into the forest, his flashlight and a small hunting knife in his hand. The woods were quiet except for that repeating beeping sound. It grew louder as he moved through the trees. Then he saw it. The wreck. Half buried in the ground, a metallic pod the size of a car lay twisted and scorched. Strange blue lights blinked weakly from inside. The metal was smooth and curved like liquid glass, but parts were shattered. Ethan could smell burning ozone and something like melted stone. The beeping came from a small device half stuck in the dirt. It looked like a beacon, pulsing blue light every few seconds. Ethan crouched down and touched it carefully. It was warm, humming softly like a living thing. Suddenly, a voice echoed faintly from the beacon. He couldn't understand the words, but the tone was urgent, like a distress call. Ethan's heart pounded. Oh no, he whispered. Someone's tracking this. He turned it off quickly, covering it with dirt. But as he did, he noticed footprints, not his own. Heavy boots, at least 2 pairs, leading toward the wreck, and then back the other way. Someone had already been here. He hurried back to the cabin, fear rising in his chest. When he reached the clearing, the alien girl was standing on the porch waiting for him. Her face turned pale when she saw the dirt on his hands. They found, she whispered. Who? Ethan demanded. Who's looking for you? Her hands trembled. Hunters. They take people from stars. They sell. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. You mean they're coming here? The girl nodded. They follow signal, soon. Ethan glanced at the forest again. His quiet life had turned into something dangerous overnight. Okay, he said finally. We'll hide. We'll keep you safe. She looked at him, confused by his calm voice. Why help me? She asked softly. Ethan hesitated. Because once someone helped me too. That night, as the sky turned dark again, Ethan locked every window and checked his rifle. The alien girl, he decided to call her Lyra, sat near the fireplace, humming a strange, soothing tune. The sound was beautiful and sad, like a lullaby from another world. He couldn't sleep. Around midnight, Lyra suddenly stopped humming. Her eyes flashed silver. They near, she whispered. Ethan grabbed his flashlight, heart racing. Through the window, he saw lights moving between the trees, faint red dots like scanners or laser sights. Lyra grabbed his arm. Hide, she said urgently. Ethan shook his head. No, I'm not letting them take you. Outside, footsteps crunched through the snow. Voices, metallic, distorted, spoke in an alien tongue. Ethan took a deep breath and whispered, Stay behind me. The doorknob rattled. Then came a voice, cold and sharp. Human, step away from the subject. Ethan froze. Lyra's eyes glowed bright silver, and for a moment, the cabin lights flickered like a storm was about to break. And that was the moment Ethan realized. Whatever she truly was, she wasn't just running from danger. She was the danger. The air was tense, filled with silence so sharp that even the ticking clock in Ethan's cabin felt too loud. Outside, faint red lights moved through the fog, slow, careful, and hunting. Ethan's hands trembled as he held his rifle close to his chest. His heart pounded like thunder in his ears. Beside him, Lyra stood still, her silver hair shimmering softly in the dark. Her glowing eyes didn't blink. She wasn't scared, she looked angry. Lyra, Ethan whispered, we have to hide. But she shook her head slowly. They know stop, if find me. They take you too. Her voice was calm, but Ethan could feel fear hiding behind her words. He didn't understand everything, but he knew one thing. Whoever was out there, they weren't human. A metallic voice shouted from outside. Target detected. Energy trace confirmed. Ethan's blood turned cold. Before he could react, the door burst open. A flash of red light filled the room. 2 tall figures stepped inside, covered in dark armor that shimmered like oil. Their helmets hid their faces, but their movements were too smooth, too precise. Lyra raised her hand. "Stop!" she cried. The aliens paused for half a second, just long enough for her eyes to blaze bright silver. A wave of invisible energy shot out from her body. The air rippled and the cabin windows shattered with a loud crack. One of the hunters was thrown back against the wall, crashing through a shelf. The other staggered but aimed a strange weapon at her. Ethan fired his rifle without thinking. The shot echoed, but the bullet bounced off the alien's armor like it hit metal stone. The alien turned toward him. "Human interference recorded. Eliminate." Lyra screamed, a sound like glass breaking underwater. In an instant, her whole body glowed, brighter and brighter until Ethan had to shield his eyes. The alien's weapon melted in his hand as the air filled with electric blue sparks. When the light faded, both hunters lay motionless on the floor, their armor smoking. Ethan stared, speechless. What did you just do?" Lyra looked at her trembling hands, fear in her eyes. "I didn't mean—" "They hurt you?" Ethan slowly lowered his rifle. "You saved my life." She looked away. "Now more will come. They feel when we fight." He stepped closer, putting a hand on her shoulder. "Then we leave. We'll get far away from here." But Lyra shook her head. "You don't understand. They follow the signal, no matter where. My kind, and they made me. I'm not supposed to live free." Ethan frowned. "Made you? What do you mean?" She hesitated. "I was born in a lab, not born. Created. I ran. They hunt me because I know things. About them. About humans." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Humans, you mean? They've been here before?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Long time, hidden, using Earth for test. For trade." Ethan's mind spun. "You're saying they've been using us?" She didn't answer, just looked down. Her silver tears glowed faintly as they fell on the wooden floor. The cabin was a mess. Broken glass, burnt walls, 2 alien bodies lying still. Smoke curled toward the ceiling. Ethan knew he couldn't stay here. Someone, or something, would come looking soon. He grabbed his coat, a backpack, and stuffed in food, water, and tools. "We'll go to the mountains," he said. "There's an old mine. No signal there. He'll be safe." Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. "You would run for me?" Ethan smiled sadly. "I already did, the moment I opened my door." They left the cabin under the pale moonlight, moving quickly through the forest. Snow started to fall, covering their tracks. Behind them, the beacon that Ethan had buried flickered once more, as if waking up. Miles away, far beyond Earth's orbit, a massive black ship rotated slowly among the stars. Inside, a red hologram blinked to life, showing Earth's map with a pulsing blue dot. A deep voice echoed through the control room. "Subject Lyra 7 located. Prepare retrieval." Back on Earth, Lyra suddenly stopped walking. Her eyes widened in pain and she clutched her head. "They found us again." Ethan caught her before she fell. "Stay with me. We'll find a way." She looked up weakly, whispering, "You can't fight them, Ethan. They control the stars." He smiled faintly. "Maybe. But you haven't seen what humans do when someone threatens their family." The mountain air was thin and cold. Snowflakes drifted softly through the darkness as Ethan and Lyra climbed higher, their breaths turning into clouds of white mist. Behind them, the valley was silent. Too silent. Even the birds had stopped singing. They had walked for hours. Ethan's legs ached, but he didn't complain. He could see Lyra growing weaker with every step, her glowing skin now dim, flickering like a dying flame. "We're almost there," he said softly. "Just a little more." At last they reached an old mining tunnel carved deep into the rocks. Ethan pulled away the wooden planks blocking the entrance. Inside, it was dark and cold but dry, a place where no signals would reach. He lit a lantern and helped Lyra sit against the wall. She looked exhausted, her silver eyes half closed. "Safe?" she asked weakly. "For now," Ethan said, forcing a smile. He laid his coat around her shoulders. For a moment, they just listened to the echo of dripping water. Then Lyra looked up at him. "You should leave," she said softly. "If they find me, they take you too." Ethan shook his head. "Not a chance." Lyra tilted her head, confused by his stubbornness. "Why do humans help strangers?" He thought for a moment. "Because sometimes strangers become family." Something changed in her expression, a softness, almost human. She whispered, family. But before they could rest, a faint hum filled the cave. Lyra's eyes widened in alarm. No, the sky machine still find me. What machine? Ethan asked. She pressed her hand to the stone wall. A faint light spread under her palm, glowing lines that formed strange alien symbols. Then the wall behind her cracked open slightly, revealing a hidden door. Ethan stepped back in shock. What the hell? How did you? She looked at him with guilt. This place? Not just mine. My people used this world long ago. Secret labs, experiments. Ethan's heart sank. Here? On Earth? Lyra nodded slowly. Before humans learned sky travel, they watched you. Changed some of you. I was made to help them continue. He stared at her. Changed us? What do you mean, changed? She looked down. You have part of them, small, inside your blood. That's why you feel close to me. The words hit him like thunder. His head spun. You're saying humans were experiments? Yes, she whispered. But you evolved different, free. We lost that. That's why they fear you. Ethan felt his chest tighten. His quiet life, his memories, everything suddenly felt small, part of something huge and terrible. And you? He asked softly. What are you to them? Lyra's voice broke. I am a mistake. I feel things they erased, love, fear, kindness. They want to destroy me. Ethan knelt in front of her, looking into those glowing eyes. Then they'll have to go through me first. A tear rolled down her cheek, shining like silver. You don't understand, Ethan. They don't stop. They control the skies, he smiled faintly. Then we'll fight from the ground. She almost laughed, a small fragile sound. For a few moments they just sat there, surrounded by quiet darkness. But the silence didn't last. The hum outside grew louder. A red glow flickered at the mouth of the tunnel. Ethan grabbed his rifle and peeked outside and froze. Dozens of drones hovered in the snow, flashing crimson lights through the storm. They scanned the ground, their metallic voices whispering through the air. Target locked. Human interference detected. Lyra stood slowly, her hair lifting as energy built around her. No more running, she said in a calm, distant tone. If I use my core, they stop, but I die. Ethan's eyes widened. There has to be another way. She shook her head gently. Family worth everything. Before he could stop her, she stepped forward, her glow brightening like a rising star. The snowstorm swirled wildly around her as energy surged from her body. The drones turned and fired, but their lasers vanished into a burst of blue light. Ethan shielded his face, shouting her name, but her voice was calm. Don't be sad. I see your heart. It's beautiful, then a flash. The mountain shook. The drones exploded midair, their metal fragments falling like rain. When the light faded, Lyra collapsed, her glow fading to pale white. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. No, stay with me, please. Her hand touched his cheek. Human, strong, promise, protect Earth. He held her tighter, tears mixing with falling snow. I promise, but don't leave me. Her voice was a whisper now. Not leaving. Inside you. Always. Her silver eyes dimmed, and for a moment the world was silent again. Ethan buried his face in her hair, heartbreaking. But then something strange happened. The symbols she had drawn on the cave wall glowed faintly again, wrapping them both in soft light. A heartbeat, not his, echoed through the cave, and Lyra's body began to dissolve into shimmering particles that drifted into Ethan's chest, merging with him. He gasped, feeling warmth rush through his veins. His hands glowed faintly silver. Lyra was gone. But something inside him whispered, they will come again. Be ready. The sun rose weakly over the frozen mountains. Snow sparkled across the valley, quiet and still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Ethan sat by the mouth of the cave, staring at his trembling hands. They glowed faintly, a soft silver light moving beneath his skin like liquid stars. It had been hours since Lyra vanished. Or maybe became part of him. He could still hear her voice, faint and echoing inside his head. Don't be afraid. You are not alone, he whispered into the cold air. Lyra, are you still here? No answer, only the wind. But deep inside, something pulsed. Slow and gentle, like another heartbeat joined with his own. Ethan stood, dizzy. The air around him shimmered faintly. When he stepped forward, His footprints glowed for a moment before fading. His breath formed silver mist instead of white. He clenched his fists. What's happening to me? Then the memories came. Not his, but hers. Flashes of stars, massive ships, and burning worlds. A planet covered in crystal towers. A laboratory where cold voices ordered, "Erase emotion. Perfect the weapon." And then Lyra's voice crying, "I just wanted to be free." Ethan gasped, clutching his head. Her memories faded, but her feelings stayed. Love, fear, and the will to protect. He realized she hadn't died. She had given him her essence, her power. And her mission. Outside, thunder rumbled, and even though the sky was clear, Ethan looked up and his stomach dropped. In the distance, a massive shadow moved across the clouds. A dark, triangular ship, silent and deadly. It wasn't a drone. It was a warship. "They found me," he whispered. Then he paused. "No, they found us." He ran back inside the cave, gathering his gear. But as he picked up his rifle, it began to glow with faint blue light, reacting to the energy inside him. He stared at it, shocked. Lyra's voice whispered faintly, "You can shape it. The light obeys your will." Ethan aimed the rifle at the wall, not to destroy but to test. A pulse of blue energy shot out, leaving a scorch mark. He smiled despite his fear. "Guess I'm not just human anymore." The ship in the sky grew larger, descending toward the mountains. He could hear strange, distant voices through the air, alien language mixed with machine signals. He hid behind the rocks as bright lights swept across the valley. Dozens of armored figures landed near the base of the mountain, their weapons glowing red. They moved in formation, hunting, scanning, searching. Ethan took a deep breath. "Okay, Lyra, let's see what this new power can do." He closed his eyes, focusing. The air around him vibrated. Tiny sparks danced along his arms. The ground beneath his feet cracked slightly as the energy built up inside. Then he moved, faster than before, stronger than he ever imagined. He darted between trees, silent as the wind. When one of the hunters raised his weapon, Ethan appeared behind him, his hand glowing. A blast of silver light threw the alien back several meters, armor melting like wax. The others turned and opened fire, but Ethan lifted his arm. A shimmering barrier of light appeared, blocking the red energy beams. The sound echoed through the mountains like thunder. When the smoke cleared, Ethan stood in the middle of it all, breathing hard, surrounded by burning snow. The surviving hunters retreated, sending a signal to the ship above. Ethan looked up, his eyes glowing like Lyra's once had. "I'm not your prey anymore," he said quietly. The warship fired a blinding beam toward the ground. The explosion shook the mountain, throwing Ethan back into the cave. He coughed, half buried in rubble but still alive. His wounds healed faster than he could believe, glowing light closing them. Then from within the dust, a holographic figure appeared, tall, with armor of glass and eyes of fire. It spoke in a cold, robotic tone. "Human Lyra hybrid detected. Priority target. Extraction required." Ethan forced himself to his feet. "You'll have to kill me first." The figure tilted its head. "We already did." And before Ethan could answer, the hologram faded, leaving behind a small metallic sphere pulsing red. He reached for it cautiously, and when he touched it, images flashed in his mind, blueprints, symbols, a secret facility beneath the ocean. A voice whispered, "Project Rebirth. Humanity's final experiment." Ethan stepped back, breathless. They weren't just watching Earth. They were using it. Lyra's voice echoed again, soft but urgent. "Ethan, they'll come for everyone. You must stop them." He looked toward the sky, the alien ship vanishing into the clouds. His hands glowed brighter than ever. "Then I will," he said. "For you. For humanity." The storm returned, lightning flashing across the peaks. Ethan walked into the snow, glowing faintly. No longer just a man, but something new. Something the stars themselves would soon learn to fear. For days, Ethan followed the trail the sphere had shown him, through silent towns, across snowy plains, and finally to the endless blue of the ocean. The map burned into his mind led him to a forgotten coast where jagged cliffs met cold waves. There was nothing there but salt, wind, and loneliness. But he knew better. Lyra's voice whispered faintly inside his head, guiding him. Beneath the water. "Follow the current. The gate is hidden." Ethan stood at the cliff's edge, looking down at the dark sea. "I can't breathe underwater," he muttered. Then, as if answering him, his hands began to glow faintly. The silver light spread through his veins, and suddenly he could feel the water calling. Familiar, almost alive. He jumped. The icy ocean swallowed him, but he didn't sink. Instead, the water parted slightly around him, shimmering like liquid glass. He could breathe. The light inside his chest pulsed brighter, pushing him deeper until he saw it. A massive structure hidden beneath the waves. A ring of metal and crystal glowed faintly on the ocean floor. The words Project Rebirth were etched across it in both English and alien script. Ethan swam closer. As his hand touched the surface, the ring lit up, scanning him. A mechanical voice echoed through the deep. "DNA recognized. Hybrid code confirmed. Access granted." The ocean floor split open. A tunnel of light pulled him inside. When he opened his eyes again, he was standing in a dry metal chamber. The walls hummed with power. Strange blue lights flickered like stars trapped in glass tubes. Ethan walked forward, heart pounding. This place wasn't alien, it was human-built. He could read the signs, the language, the warnings. Bioweapon Lab 7A, authorized personnel only. He entered slowly. Inside the main hall stood rows of glass pods. Each one held something, people or what used to be people. Some looked human, others didn't. Some had glowing eyes like Lyra's. His voice shook. "Oh, God." Then he saw her. One pod in the center was different. Inside floated a small child. A girl no older than 8 with silver hair and pale skin that glowed faintly blue. Her heart monitor beeped softly. Ethan pressed his hand to the glass. "Lyra?" A screen lit up beside the pod showing old data logs. Subject: Lyra 8 status. Stasis designation: emotional code seed. Purpose: restore sentient empathy to control units. He stepped back, realization hitting him like a wave. Lyra, the woman he saved, wasn't the only one. There were more. She was Lyra 7, this child was her successor. A whisper filled his mind again, Lyra's voice. "She is my sister." They kept her sleeping. "Protect her," Ethan swallowed hard. "I will." Suddenly the lights in the lab turned red. A deep alarm echoed through the corridors. Unauthorized access detected. "Retrieval squad inbound." He turned to run him, but the child's pod began to drain. The fluid inside bubbled away and her eyes opened. Bright silver light filled the room. The little girl stepped out barefoot, her voice soft and uncertain. "Who are you?" "I'm a friend," Ethan said, kneeling. "Your sister sent me." The girl tilted her head, confused. "Sister, Lyra?" "Yes," he said quickly. "She's gone, but she's part of me now. We have to leave." Before she could answer, heavy footsteps echoed from the entrance. Doors slammed open. Soldiers in black armor rushed in, weapons glowing red. Ethan stood between them and the girl. "You're not taking her." Target confirmed. One of the soldiers barked. "Hybrid life forms must be contained." Ethan raised his glowing hand. "Try it." Blue lightning burst from his palm, hitting the ground between them. The shockwave threw the soldier's back. The air shimmered with heat and energy. The little girl clung to his arm, terrified. He whispered to her, "Close your eyes." With Lyra's power still inside him, Ethan focused. And for a moment, he felt the ocean around them respond. The walls cracked as waves smashed against the facility. Water flooded in, destroying cables and machines. He carried the girl through the rising flood, both of them glowing faintly in the darkness. As they reached the exit tunnel, a final alarm screamed through the base. Containment breach. Project Rebirth compromised. Ethan dove into the collapsing tunnel. Behind him, the lab exploded, a blue blast lighting up the sea. When he surfaced hours later, gasping for air, dawn was breaking. The child in his arms stirred, her small hand glowing softly. "Where are we?" she whispered. "Somewhere safe," he said, though he wasn't sure himself. The girl looked at him, eyes full of the same innocence Lyra once had. "You're like me," she said softly. Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess I am now." He looked toward the horizon where the sun met the water. For the first time, he didn't feel alone, but deep down he knew the war wasn't over. Far above Earth, the alien warship adjusted its course, locking onto a new signal, and inside its command core, a voice said coldly, "Rebirth failed. Activate Phase 2. Waves crashed against the shore as Ethan carried the small girl through the rising mist. The ocean behind them glowed faintly blue, the last trace of the explosion deep below. He set her down gently on the sand. Her silver eyes blinked open, soft and calm. "Is it over?" she whispered. Ethan looked toward the sky. Not yet. High above, clouds swirled unnaturally. A dark shape pushed through the atmosphere, massive, triangular, and covered in lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. The alien warship had returned. Lyra's faint voice echoed inside his mind. "They know. They will not stop until every hybrid is gone." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then they'll have to destroy me first." The little girl stood beside him, her hair flowing in the wind. "I can help," she said. "I have her memories too." He looked at her in surprise. "You mean," she nodded. "When Lyra joined you, she woke me. We are the same light." Ethan felt warmth in his chest spreading through his veins. The glow from the girl matched his own. They were connected. Two hearts, one purpose. The warship opened its lower hatch. Dozens of drones descended like black rain, scanning the beach. Their red sensors swept across the sand until they stopped on the glowing pair. "Target located," a metallic voice announced. "Engage!" Ethan turned to the girl. "When I say run, you run. Don't look back," she shook her head firmly. "No, I fight too." Before he could argue, the air filled with red light. The first blast hit the sand beside them, throwing dust and fire into the air. Ethan lifted his arm. A shimmering energy shield formed, blocking the next attack. The girl reached out her hand and blue light spiraled from her fingertips, colliding with the drones. One by one they exploded in bright flashes. Ethan smiled through the chaos. "You're full of surprises, kid." "Lyra taught me," she said, eyes glowing brighter. The drones regrouped. The warship began charging its main weapon, a glowing cannon building power above them. The sky turned crimson. Ethan felt the ground tremble. "That thing could wipe out the whole coast," he muttered. Lyra's voice whispered in his mind again. "You can stop it, Ethan, but it will take everything." He looked at the girl. "If I fall, you keep running. Promise me." She looked up, tears shining like silver. "You're my family." "I don't leave family." Something inside him broke. Not in pain, but in pride. He nodded. "Then let's end this together." They stood side by side as the warship's cannon fired. The beam shot downward like a red comet. Ethan and the girl raised their hands together. Blue and silver light burst from their bodies, forming a dome around them. The beam hit, and for a moment the world went white. The explosion shook the sea. Waves rose higher than mountains. But inside the storm of light, Ethan felt calm. He could hear Lyra's voice one last time. "Thank you for showing what humans truly are." Then everything went silent. When the light faded, the beach was gone, replaced by a vast crater of glass and sand. The warship hovered above, its hull cracked, lights flickering. Then with a distant roar, it broke apart and fell into the ocean, disappearing beneath the waves. The sky cleared. Ethan lay on the beach, weak and barely breathing. The glow inside him was fading. The girl crawled beside him, tears falling on his chest. "Don't go," she whispered. "Please," he smiled faintly. "You'll be fine. You're stronger than me." Her small hands gripped his tightly. "What will I do without you?" He looked at her, the last piece of Lyra's legacy, a living spark of two worlds. "You live," he whispered. "You protect this planet. That's what family does." His hand slowly fell to the sand. His eyes closed. The silver glow from his body drifted upward, breaking into countless shining particles that floated into the dawn sky. The girl watched, crying softly. Then she stood facing the rising sun. Her eyes shone like two tiny stars. From somewhere deep inside, Ethan's voice whispered to her, "Remember, humans never give up." She smiled through her tears. "I won't." She turned away from the sea, walking toward the hills, small, barefoot, and glowing faintly in the golden light. Birds circled above her, the world alive again. And far beyond the sky, among the scattered wrecks of the alien fleet, a single silver spark drifted quietly between the stars, carrying Ethan's and Lyra's memories together, human and alien. Two souls, one light, one family.